I think it is a very shameful thing if universities are doing this in order to raise money. It's wrong. It should not be at the expense of the students. You agree with me? Yes. You agree with me? Yes. This is to put into consideration. That is, you are supposed to consider people who sat for the test in foreign countries. You consider the distance and the financial implication for their having to come to sit for the examination. And if you can do this for Nigerians in foreign countries, you should do it also for Nigerians who are within the country.
No one will go below 180 this year, but some universities can go above it. 200, I know Ife will not take less than 200, Lagos will not take less than 200, Ibadan the same thing. That's one stance, but 180 for others. But this year we have more than enough candidates who scored 180. Over 1.05 million candidates scored 180 and above. So we get enough candidates to take. If they're serious, they will get them.
Well, to discuss that and education in the country, Professor Tola Badejo joins us now. He's a pioneer vice chancellor of Wesley University. He's also a professor of zoology in Obafemi Awolowo University, Ife. Thank you for coming on this morning, Prof.
Thank you.
Well, focusing on education, we'll start off with that because lots of reactions coming through about that one. Was it a right or good move or a wrong one?
Well, I won't say yes or no directly. I think I should explain. We don't have a sense of history in this country. And as the normal saying goes, if you don't know where you're coming from, you won't know where you're going. You may even end up facing the wrong direction. Post-UTME came into being in 2007. It was the Minister for Education then that allowed us to go ahead and screen the students further. Before then, students who were admitted on merit because of high UTME score were unteachable. They were unteachable. I started my career in the early 80s. Those admitted for pharmacy, medicine, they used to do biology, zoology 101 and all that. We didn't record any failure in that course for many years. But as the thing crept in the 90s,
what crept in?
That is this cheating, JAMB, corruption in respect of JAMB results. We now started seeing students admitted for medicine not being able to score 25% in Zoo 101. And if you look at the JAMB score, you find that you almost cleared all the marks. It was also evident from various centers that people were just, it was chaotic. Even parents were assisting their children in cheating. Invigilators will take money from students in exam hall. Before you know it, after 1 hour, they start distributing answers. Some people are already somewhere in the corner that will help them do it.
But before that approval from the minister at that time, did the schools discuss this in their policy committee meetings with maybe JAMB and the ministry authorities? The
agitation for post-UTME actually started many years before it was virtually granted. So I don't think there was any academic in this country that didn't support it. It became inevitable that we should try to make the students prove that their JAMB score was actually real. The first post-UTME we did in Ife, when the thing came, it was very close to our admission. So we just decided that every faculty should just interview, oral interview. Do you know somebody admitted for pharmacy who scored almost 300? Didn't know the spelling of pharmacy. F.A. He started with F.A. So definitely somebody did that for him. There were students that were just unteachable. And of course, the corruption in JAMB exam also crept into the university. When you buy score, when you buy mark to enter university, then you have to buy to continue to pass. It got to a point that many SIC students, pharmacy students were failing because they came in through merit. When we started in 2008, I was the first chairman of post-UTME screening. You know where you then. I was on my way out as dean. Some students who scored 302, 303 could not score 100 in our post-UTME. So we were able to screen them out, isn't that?
And it wasn't that your own questions were harder?
They were not harder. In fact, we told them, well, we are going to do it like, it's going to be like replica of JAMB questions. So we looked for a way to make it highly confidential. All those people involved in JAMB, whatever, they were also, people were paying their money to buy question marks. But what I did then was, I didn't even produce the questions in Ife. And by the time we came, instead of 200 questions in JAMB, they just got to the exam and I saw 50. Replica, but reduced in terms of the 1.5 hours to write it, one quarter, I think. So because in JAMB, because it took 3 hours, so they had 2 hours to prepare the questions elsewhere and the remaining 1 hour to give them to teach. We played a trick that time. I made sure that all the questions, there was no option E. We had just 4 options. But we caught students in that post-UTME exam hall with prepared answers, 50 questions per subject, and he featured. So there are people who also cheated, cashed in on that the greed of the parents and students and sold water to them. So we succeeded in eliminating that. And it's still like that up to today.
So in other words, I think from your analysis now, I think you've been able to give us an answer that it's a no-no for the government to phase out the post-UTME.
No, I'm going to add this. If JAMB has been sanitized properly.
If?
Yeah, JAMB.
That's a clause of conditionality.
Because I know that results are becoming credible now. All the post-UTME results of recent more or less tally with the,
So
because they know they cannot.
So no need for UTME.
So if it is true, it has been truly sanitized, then there may not be a need for UTME. So the question is, has it been sanitized? Is federal government convinced that it has been sanitized?
But I thought you said
then if it has,
I thought you said it's better.
No, it's getting better, but I would not be able to tell you whether it's something that should.
Just looking at the student enrollment in Nigerian universities, we see the federal, states, and private. Well, we see a lot of people gravitating towards. Well, there's a lot more entry in the private ones. Am I saying no? The federal ones.
We have more coming into the federal, followed by the state, but there's a significant increase in 2010 for private universities, about 47,000 there for 2010 alone. You've been in the federal and as well as the private. Perhaps you tell us why we're getting to see this, significant increase from the private, because once upon a time it wasn't up to this number that we're getting to see here now. This is as of 2010.
This is a familiar table. What it has just shown is that Nigerian universities have now been able to admit more students. But I will tell you, none of these figures. It's up to 15% of those who are eligible. Nigeria is probably one of the few countries where you need to do JAMB and do post-UTME. Normally, the schools and result credits should admit. But we do not have enough space for eligible or candidates that are qualified. So that is why JAMB is there in the first place. Otherwise, there's no need for JAMB. But if JAMB is now not credible, UTME should be there to make sure that it becomes credible. So for anybody to scrap UTME, that person must be able to declare with empirical data that yes, now they don't rig or they don't cheat in JAMB.
But there's a pain here for the candidate, and it has to do with the aspiration of the JAMB results. If you say you have some limited space for people to come into schools, and it didn't quite seem lucky for X, Y, Z as a candidate, and they actually pass the exam. But after a year, that result doesn't take them into any school the next year. So, are we likely to call for a look on the aspiration